There is a specific kind of iron-cold fear that can drive even a god to madness. For the Aesir, the mighty gods of Asgard, that fear had a name, and it had golden, predatory eyes. It wasn't an invading army or a rival king that kept Odin awake at night. It was a puppy, a small, rapidly growing wolf pup brought into the golden halls of the gods. They knew the prophecies. The Norns, the weavers of fate, had whispered that this creature would one day swallow the sun and tear the All-Father asunder. But here is the question the deep archives ask. Was Fenrir born to destroy the world, or did he only decide to end it after the gods taught him what betrayal felt like? Welcome back to the deep archives. Today we are opening the case file on Fenrir, the most feared monster in Norse mythology. He is the son of Loki, the trickster, and the giantess Angerboda. From birth, he was an anomaly. While his siblings were a serpent that circled the world and a goddess who ruled the dead, Fenrir was something more visceral. He was hunger. He was growth. In the beginning, the gods tried to treat him like a pet. Only Tyr, the god of justice and war, was brave enough to feed the beast. He saw the wolf's intelligence. He saw its capacity for loyalty. But the rest of Asgard saw only a ticking time bomb. As the weeks turned into months, Fenrir didn't just grow. He expanded. He became a mountain of fur and muscle that could no longer fit within the halls of the gods. And with his size came a terrifying realization for Odin. You cannot domesticate destiny. The gods decided that Fenrir couldn't be killed, for no blood could be spilled on the sacred ground of Asgard. But he could be managed. This was the beginning of the Great Containment. The gods didn't act out of justice. They acted out of a frantic, desperate need to control the uncontrollable. They began to craft the chains that would eventually lead to the end of everything. To investigate the fall of Fenrir, we have to look at the 3 tests of strength. The gods approached the wolf not as jailers, but as friends playing a game. They challenged Fenrir to a test of his legendary power. The first chain was Leiding, a massive, heavy iron shackle. Fenrir looked at it, felt its weight, and with a single stretch of his legs, the iron snapped like dry glass. The gods laughed, hiding their trembling hands, and returned to the forge. The second chain was Dromi. It was twice as thick, forged with the strongest metals the gods could find. Fenrir felt the malice behind the iron this time. He felt the cold eyes of the gods watching him, hoping he would fail. He gathered his strength, his muscles rippling like a coming storm, and he kicked. Dromi didn't just break, it exploded into shrapnel. Fenrir stood victorious, a king of power. But the archives show us that this was the moment the gods stopped seeing him as a brother and started seeing him as a monster. This led to the ultimate deception, Gleipnir. The gods knew that physical iron would never hold a cosmic force. So, they sent a messenger to the Svartalfheim, the realm of the dwarves. They didn't ask for metal. They asked for a paradox. Gleipnir was crafted from 6 impossible things. The sound of a cat's footfall, the beard of a woman, the roots of a mountain, the sinews of a bear, the breath of a fish, and the spittle of a bird. It wasn't a chain at all. It was a ribbon, soft as silk, thin as a hair, but imbued with a magical strength that defied the laws of physics. It was a trap made of lies, designed to bind a creature that only understood the language of strength. Let's examine the evidence of betrayal. The gods took Fenrir to the desolate island of Lyngvi. They showed him the silken ribbon and mocked him, saying he surely couldn't break something so thin. But Fenrir was no longer a simple animal. He sensed the magic. He smelled the deceit. He told the gods he would let them bind him, but only on one condition. As a token of good faith, one of the gods must place their hand inside his jaws. If the ribbon was magical and he couldn't break free, he would take the hand as payment for their treachery. Silence fell over the island. The mighty gods looked at their feet. They were willing to betray their ward, but none were willing to pay the price. Except for one. Tyr, the only god Fenrir ever trusted, stepped forward. He placed his right hand between the massive, serrated teeth of the wolf. Fenrir allowed himself to be bound. He struggled. He thrashed. But the more he fought Gleipnir, the tighter the silk gripped his flesh. The gods began to laugh. They had won. They had contained the threat. But the laughter died the moment the wolf's jaws snapped shut. Tyr lost his hand, but the gods lost their honor. They took a sword and thrust it through Fenrir's jaws, the hilt in the lower jaw and the point in the roof of his mouth, so he could never close his maw again. They left him there, pinned to a rock in the freezing dark, drooling a river of black bile called expectation. For thousands of years, Fenrir remained in that silence, his rage marinating in the cold. Every day he was chained. The prophecy he was meant to fulfill became less of a destiny and more of a personal vendetta. The gods didn't prevent Ragnarok, they gave the monster a reason to start it. Why does the legend of the bound wolf still resonate? Because it is the ultimate study in the self-fulfilling prophecy. We often create the very things we fear by the way we choose to contain them. We see it in our society, in our politics, and in our personal lives. When we treat a person like a monster long enough, eventually, they will stop trying to prove us wrong. They will simply become the beast we've already described. The gods of Asgard thought they were being wise. In reality, they were just cowards who traded their integrity for a temporary sense of security. The archive reminds us that the chains will eventually break. Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods, begins not with an earthquake, but with a snap. Gleipnir will fail. Fenrir will rise, his jaw still pinned open, his eyes burning with the accumulated hate of eons. He will find Odin on the battlefield of Vigrid, and the All-Father will finally face the consequence of the pup he brought into his home and then betrayed. Fenrir isn't just a wolf. He is the check that the universe eventually cashes when power is exercised without justice. So, the next time you feel the urge to chain something down because you're afraid of what it might become, ask yourself if you're stopping a monster or if you're building one. Because the wolf is always listening, and the chains are always thinner than they look. This has been a Mystic Story Weaver Deep Dive. The archive is closed,